I'm Dahlia. My life was pretty much normal until my family and I made the huge mistake of playing an Among Us game. It completely ruined my family, to the point where my mom and dad don't speak to each other anymore. If you're wondering how it came down to that, stay tuned until the end of the video. Just like any other kid when Among Us boomed, I played it a ton with my friends. We'd have so much fun, and I really loved being the imposter and winning games. I was especially good at being a detective, too. And my friends would always say I was so big-brained whenever I cracked the case on who the imposter was. But before I go on, be sure to like and subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any more awesome stories. Naturally, I wanted my family to play with me too to see how they would do at the game. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention this, but I have 7 other siblings. Crazy, right? There's Dixie, Dario, Daisy, Dylan, Dipper, Dee Dee, and the youngest, Bob. You're probably wondering why everyone except Bob has a name starting with D. But supposedly my parents got so fed up by the time they had Bob that they just couldn't be bothered to think of another name beginning with D. Anyways, one day I asked my family to come play a game of Among Us together, and we all got ready in the living room. It was also perfect since there were 10 of us, so we could have a full game. We got our phones out, sat on the couch together, but positioned ourselves so we couldn't see each other's screens and cheat. And we also all wore earphones, so no one could hear us doing our tasks or hear any of us kill someone either. The first game was pretty funny. No one really knew how to play the game, so it was mostly just a bunch of us goofing around and having fun. But then, eventually my family started to actually get good at the game, and we managed to have some pretty wild and intense games. Like one time it came down to a 50-50 with 3 people left, myself, Dixie, and Bob. Dixie was saying that Bob had killed in front of her, while Bob said Dixie had killed in front of him. I wasn't sure who it was, but when I looked at Dixie, I immediately knew it was her. Don't tell her this. Although, if she sees this video, she'll probably find out anyways. Sorry, Dixie. But Dixie has a tell whenever she lies. She always scratches her earlobe, and she was doing it then. I voted off Dixie, and we won the game. Then came another intense 1 versus 2 game. I was the imposter this time, and I was trying to convince my mom that Dad had killed someone. Dad tried to defend himself and say it was actually me who had been killed. But then Mom just suddenly voted for Dad, and the crewmates lost the game. I was happy since I had won as an imposter, but then I froze because suddenly Mom and Dad were arguing. "You never trust me," yelled Dad. He was red in the face. "Of course I don't trust you," replied Mom quietly. "What's that supposed to mean?" "You know exactly what it means." "Mom, Dad, why are you fighting? It's just a game of Among Us. Don't take it seriously." "You made us lose the game," Dad yelled at Mom again. "You deserved it," Mom yelled back. "Sarah, not in front of the kids. Come on," replied Dad sternly. "Don't Sarah me. Ugh, I can't deal with you. That's it. I'm moving out." "What?" My siblings and I all screamed at once. "Sarah," Dad said in shock, "don't do this. I've had enough. I won't let you treat me like this anymore. We're through. I'm filing for divorce." And with those last words, my mom went upstairs to her bedroom and started filling up a bag with her things. My siblings and I immediately asked Dad what was wrong, but he wouldn't say anything. He just stormed outside and took off in his car to vent out. My siblings and I had no idea what to do. Why had Mom and Dad started fighting all of a sudden? How could a game of Among Us have ruined my family so quickly? It didn't make any sense. I told you I was a good detective, right? Well, I couldn't seem to figure out the mystery of this case. It was just a game. Surely Mom and Dad wouldn't have been so butthurt over that. They were logical people. "Who will we live with?" asked Dylan. "I don't know. How can we choose between Mom and Dad?" asked Dee Dee. "Maybe Mom is just joking," I said. "She'll probably come back down and say it was all a prank, right?" But she didn't. Well, she came back downstairs, but not to say it was a prank. She came back down with her bag of belongings and her car keys. When she saw all of us gathered in the living room, she looked sad. "I'm sorry, my darlings," she said, "but I just don't love your father anymore. I'm moving out. I already have an apartment ready." "But Mom," I said in surprise, It was just a game. I'm sure Dad was just a little angry because of the game. But Mom just smiled sadly and walked away. You can choose who you want to live with, she called over as she left. My apartment isn't as big as this house, but it's your choice. At the end, my siblings decided to flip a coin. We felt sorry for both of them and didn't want to leave them on their own. I ended up living with my dad, with 3 of my other siblings, while 4 others went to live with Mom. It was so weird being separated like this, especially since it was so sudden. Every day after Mom moved out, I wished I could have turned back time to stop us from playing the Among Us game that ruined my family. The worst thing was, Mom and Dad both tried to pretend nothing had happened. They acted like everyone was just perfect, when it so clearly wasn't. And neither of them wanted to talk about the fact that they had divorced over an Among Us game either. It was ridiculous. I also missed living with all of my siblings. It was great having so many brothers and sisters, but now that half of them were gone, I was a little lonely. And of course I missed my mom. Sure, Dad was great, but of course a daughter's gonna miss her mom. Life was pretty miserable, and I decided it was stupid for my parents to have separated over a game of Among Us. And so I made a plan with my siblings to get my parents back together. First, we had to somehow get them at the same house. My mom and dad weren't speaking at all, so that was going to be tricky. To do that, Dixie had the bright idea to tell Mom that she had left some stuff at the house, and she needed to come back to pick them up. Dixie told Mom that Dad was out at work when, in fact, she was lying. Dad was at home. We weren't sure Mom would take the bait, but sure enough, she came over with a bag, ready to grab the stuff she had supposedly left behind. When Mom entered the house, however, she was shocked to find all of her children gathered in the living room again. Dad was upstairs and had no clue what we were planning. "Mom, please take a seat," I said. Mom seemed so confused, but she could tell we were all serious, so she took a seat. "What's going on?" she asked. "One moment," I said formally. Then I ran upstairs quickly and dragged Dad down into the living room. "Dahlia, what are you—" said Dad, but then froze as he saw Mom was there. "Sarah, why are you here?" "I believe our children tricked me," said Mom coldly. I forced Dad onto the couch, and then I explained everything. "Look, we just can't accept that you two are separated. And over an Among Us game? Seriously? And so to resolve your issues, we have decided there's no better way than to have another game of Among Us to prove to you that you still love each other. And a silly game shouldn't be able to break you up." Mom and Dad had their mouths open and were staring in shock. "Wait, you think we broke up because of that Among Us game?" said Mom in disbelief. "Honey, that's not why we broke up," said Dad. I hesitated. "Wait, it isn't? Then why?" But the rest of my sentence was snatched away when I heard the door open. I did a quick head count of the room and confirmed there were 10 of us here. So, who was the stranger coming into our house? We were all sort of frozen as we waited for the newcomer to enter the living room. And when she did, let me tell you, it was not who we would have imagined. It was my science teacher. My hot science teacher. She was pretty young, like only 25 years old or something. And all the guys in my class were pretty much in love with her. She was so beautiful too, and I could see why they liked her. But what was she doing here at my dad's house? It wasn't like we'd invited her. "Miss Barry?" I cried out in surprise. "What are you doing here?" Miss Barry looked just as shocked as we were. I'm looking for Harold." Then she spotted my dad in the living room and smiled. "Sweetie pie!" she squealed. And then she rushed forward and hugged my dad and then kissed him on the mouth. My siblings stared in horror. "Miss Barry, that's my father!" I exclaimed. "He is?" she asked in confusion. "Wait, then she looked at my mom, who had turned away in disgust. "Dahlia, this is why your father and I divorced," said Mom sadly. "Wait," said Miss Barry. "Harold, you're married? And you have kids?" My dad looked so uncomfortable. "Well, you see," suddenly Mom shot up and bolted out of the house crying. I ran after her and tried to comfort her. "Your dad cheated on me, Dahlia. I saw them at the restaurant kissing. When I confronted him, he tried to pretend that I was hallucinating and that I was the one at fault. That's why we divorced," she explained. I thought it was because of the Among Us game, I said. Mom laughed bitterly. No, darling, we wouldn't have divorced over something silly like that. Mom said she was going home, and I agreed. I went back inside the house to find that Miss Barry was yelling at my dad in fury. You lied to me! You said you were single! Yelled Miss Barry. You never would have found out if you hadn't come here, replied my dad. How did you even know where I live? I Googled it, said Miss Barry. Harold, this is unacceptable. She started to sound like a teacher again. I can't be with you anymore. I feel disgusted now that I know you cheated on your wife with me. That's it. We're over. Then Miss Barry turned to me. Where's your mother? I must apologize immediately. She left, I said. I wasn't sure how I felt about my science teacher anymore. Oh, please tell her I wanted to speak with her. I'm so sorry, said Miss Barry. I nodded, and then Miss Barry left. Meanwhile, my siblings and I all turned towards my father in anger. Dad, how could you do this? We yelled. I'm sorry, he said weakly. Well, we had had enough of him too. We all stormed out and headed to our mom's place, leaving my dad alone. Once we got to Mom's place, we immediately comforted her and told her we wouldn't leave her alone. We were all furious with Dad. I decided I needed revenge on my father. I wouldn't let him treat my mom terribly and then walk away without any kind of punishment. Sure, Miss Barry had broken up with him, so now he was completely alone. But I felt like that wasn't enough, and so I devised a plan. The next morning, my siblings all got ready and set up the apartment for the plan. Mom had called Dad to tell him she was willing to talk to him at her apartment, and he was going to arrive there soon. It was all part of the plan. Soon we heard his footsteps coming up the stairs, and then the door opened. Dad entered, and then he let out a huge scream. All of us were lying on the floor covered in blood. My dad screamed and screamed. It looked like a crime scene. My dad put his hand to his mouth and started to tremble in shock. Then suddenly Miss Barry jumped out of the closet and scared him. She started laughing maniacally. Now that your family is gone, we can finally be together, she yelled. Sweetie, you did this? Asked Dad in shock. Yes, come on, Harold, let's run away together. No, this is insane. My dad started to back away, and then he took off running. Miss Barry laughed again as he ran away. Then she turned to us. The plan worked perfectly, she said. Us corpses stood up. This ketchup looks a lot like blood. Nice idea, Dahlia, said Bob. Thanks. The plan sure did work well. Who knew Among Us in real life could be so scary? I said. Thanks for helping, Miss Barry. No worries. It's the least I can do, she said. You see, I had called Miss Barry to see if she would be part of our prank, and she had immediately said yes. Mom walked over to the window and looked at my dad, who was still running. I should call him. Tell him we are all okay and it's just a prank, said Mom. I still think we were too harsh on him. Oh, I think he got what he deserved, said Miss Barry. She walked up to my mom and smiled, and Mom smiled back. We all walked up to the window and watched as my dad ran for his life.